Welcome to our Medical Homebound Instruction webinar. Today we'll be discussing South Carolina regulations as well as federal law regulations. We'll be looking at what medical homebound actually is, home-based instruction, responsibilities of the schools in the district, our policies and procedures, as well as a process flow chart that's been created. When we first begin to look at the regulations in South Carolina, Regulation 43-241 indicates that students who cannot attend public school because of illness, accident, or pregnancy, even with the aid of transportation, are eligible for medical homebound or hospitalized instruction. A physician must certify that the student is unable to attend school but may profit from instruction given in the home or in the hospital. Any student participating in a program of medical homebound instruction or hospitalized instruction must be approved by the district superintendent or his or her designee on standardized forms provided by the South Carolina Department of Education. All of those forms must be maintained by the district for documentation. In our district's case, the designee would be the school operators or the school board. It is not necessarily that our district superintendent approves or disapproves the medical homebound. That's done on an individual school basis and an individual student basis. Another thing to keep in mind is that under South Carolina 59-40, a charter school must adhere to the same health, safety, civil rights, and disability rights requirements as are applied to the public schools operating in the same district. Or in our case, as a public or independent institution of higher learning sponsor, the local district in which the charter school is located. So even though we are a charter school district, we are a public school district, and we are obligated and mandated by the same laws and regulations as any other public school district. Federal law, specifically IDA in Section 504, mandate that states provide a free and appropriate public education, otherwise known as FAPE, for all children with disabilities. IDA defines FAPE as a special education and related services that are provided at public expense and provided in conformity with an individualized education program or IEP. When considering medical homebound, the district must determine if a student can be accommodated or the program can be modified so that the student can continue to attend school even if for a reduced period of time or on an abbreviated school day. Medical homebound is provided for both non-disabled and disabled students who cannot attend school for a medical reason. It can be mental or physical condition due to an accident, illness, or pregnancy. A licensed physician must certify the medical condition exists and complete the medical homebound application. The school must approve the medical homebound. Not everyone must be approved by the superintendent or their designee. The site-based operators and local school boards in our district will be the ones who approve or disapprove based on that medical documentation that was submitted by the parent. The intent of the medical homebound is to keep a student connected to his or her regular curriculum until they can return to the classroom setting. Occasionally, additional information from a physician may be requested from the school in order to gain the necessary information to approve the medical homebound. Intermittent medical homebound may be an option when a medical condition is reoccurring at different times. For example, a student may be out a day here or there, but not consistently, and a physician may recommend an intermittent medical homebound situation. If that happens, the school should meet and discuss the plan if-then. If the student is out on this day, then what will those services look like? Keep in mind, there is no magic number for medical homebound. Oftentimes we hear we can only give 5 hours. That's not true. The child should be offered what they need to continue to progress with the curriculum. When looking at students with disabilities, the medical homebound form from physician is still required even for students with disabilities. Once that's approved, the IEP or 504 team must meet and discuss what services will be needed in order for the student to continue to make progress. The IEP must be amended to reflect changes. In this case, we'd be looking at present levels, the services, remembering the IEP to end one and begin a new one, the service location, and the LRE, or the least restrictive environment. The team must consider all services that will be needed and the amount of time needed. Again, as said before, there is no magic number. The IEP team is required to consider a student's placement to medical homebound when it is projected that he or she will miss more than 10 consecutive days or for periods over a time that establish a pattern. If it's intermittent homebound, the IEP team or 504 must convene a meeting and discuss again that if-then. If the student is out, then what will those services look like? The IEP team is also required to meet when changes are needed or changes occur, such as a semester ending, if there are course changes, or items such as that. The medical homebound, just like the IEP, is an ever-evolving document and can always be amended and changed. A reoccurring medical condition for a student who is not identified as a student with a disability or currently on a 504, it may also allow a child to qualify for services or accommodations under Section 504. So teams must consider a possible 504 if needed and if appropriate. So the 504 protects all persons who meet the definition of the term disability in Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. The term disability means a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more of the major life activities, the record of such an impairment, or being regarded as having such an impairment. So again, that medical form and information from a physician would still be required. The team should meet if this is a chronic illness or even a temporary illness or injury, should meet and discuss the possibility of a 504 plan. Home-based instruction specifically is provided for students with a disability. This does not require a medical form from a physician. This is an IEP team decision or recommendation. It is only for students with disabilities. The IEP team must determine that the home setting is appropriate and constitutes the least restrictive environment. The students must be provided the opportunity to participate in non-academic and extracurricular activities with non-disabled peers to the maximum extent possible. If an IEP team is considering a home-based instruction placement, the IEP must be amended and reviewed periodically. For example, 30 days, 45 days. We don't want to place a student on home-based instruction and never come back and review. It should not be a permanent placement. It would be a temporary placement and should be reviewed periodically. Again, the IEP team is going to look at the present levels, the services, the location, and the LRE. In terms of responsibilities of the school must provide the teacher and or related services required for medical homebound or home-based instruction at the school's expense. That may mean the school may have to contract out services. This could also be a special education and a regular education teacher. So there could be multiple teachers and service providers working with this child. Schools cannot require a student come to the school for the services. The teams must consider serving in the home or a mutually agreed place with the parent. The team must also, when making these decisions, consider the medical status of the student at all times. It may not be feasible or medically safe for a child to come to the school to receive those services. The regulations state that homebound instruction is usually the student's home or hospital. If consistent with the student's medical needs, an alternative location can be chosen if deemed appropriate. The regulation specifies that the teacher shall teach the medical homebound student or students in a room especially set aside for the period of instruction. Every effort should be made to create an environment that is healthy and safe for both the student and the teacher and that is conducive to learning. So again, it does not mean that the services have to happen at home. You may Look at an alternative location if it's deemed appropriate by the team when looking at the student's medical status. All services must be documented in a timesheet. All the services must be completed, even if it goes beyond the last day of school. There are times that medical homebound or home-based services do go into summer months, but the team must complete in the services that were recommended by the team, even if it's beyond the last day of school and goes into a summer. Makeup sessions may be held when and if the student returns to school. However, they cannot be held during the regular school day. We cannot pull students from regular class instruction to makeup sessions. It would have to be before school or after school. Again, keep in mind that even though the State Department will only fund a maximum of 5 periods a week, that does not mean that is all that should be offered. It must be based on what the child needs, not what is funded. The school is responsible for any costs related to homebound or home-based instruction. The formula of 50 minutes times X amount of days is not an adequate formula. Just as a reminder, it must be based on assessment and needs of an individual student. We can't say we only offer, or the law will only allow us to offer this amount of service. That's not true, and it has to be funded, it has to be based upon what the student needs, not what is funded. Each school in their special education policies and procedures manual must identify who the medical homebound contact is at the school, as well as the date they viewed this webinar training. Each administrator is required to sign the assurances indicating the school will follow the state and federal guidelines. The medical homebound contact must also be placed on the school's website. The school must indicate what the appeal process will be if a parent does not agree with the school decision for medical homebound. So if you have a homebound situation in which it was not approved by the school operator or the board, there must be an appeal process for a parent. Again, just as a reminder, even though we are a charter school district, we are a public school district, and we must adhere to the same laws and regulations as traditional school districts. Here's a process flow chart, just a visual of the process for you to see that goes through the steps that were described. So again, the medical homebound contact becomes aware of a student who may need the instruction. They then contact the parent, review the process, and provide the required forms to the family. They would also provide the appeal process if the medical homebound is denied. The family submits the form from the physician. The medical homebound contact then submits the documentation to the school leader or the school board for the approval. They would approve, deny, or additional information may be requested. For a general education student, you can see the classroom and the home-based instructor will collaborate for that temporary program. The home-based instructor will be the one to provide that instruction, assign the work, and oversees any assessments. And the classroom teacher will regularly provide feedback and assignments to the homebound instructor. When looking over at students with IEPs, the team leader will hold a meeting to amend the student's IEP to discuss a plan for homebound or hold an amendment at the conclusion of the homebound services. This also includes students on 504s. Some resources. The first resource is the form stack to be completed once this webinar is viewed. The second resource listed is our special education Google site, in which all of the forms that you'll need, as well as this webinar, are located for easy access. And the last link is to the state instructions for medical homebound. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And thank you for watching.